It's the 14th of April in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland, and as I've been sharing with the United Nations for the past 3 years, there is an awful incident of injustice, discrimination and inequality occurring against my good name, my good character, my good reputation and my good work due to offences of culprits perpetrating hate crime and treason. The relevant agencies, as I've reiterated throughout all my uploads, have received the procedures that I initiated to resolve the wrongdoings. At the present moment, there is a very serious violation of royal patronage, my royal patronage. My ancestry has been violated and my royal status has been disrespected. There is also the violation of international protection occurring, and there is also the violation of whistleblower laws. The relevant agencies did not furnish me with the information that they are obligated to provide me with. They did not contact me with regard to the wrongdoings that I experienced, and they did not contact me with regard to the theft of intellectual, creative and spiritual property, and they did not contact me with regard to financial theft and fraud that is occurring also. So the issue today on the 14th of April is the issue of injustice. As a survivor of sexual assault in a community, and the more pertinent issue, the issue that I take exception to, is the issue of revenge porn. The issue of revenge porn, defamation and loss of reputational value, reputational and professional value, economic losses that I experienced since 2006 in my community where I've worked arduously all my life, does not represent a positive message to women. To have the experience of a reoccurrence of offences of the very same culprits in 2017 that were responsible for withholding my son from me and for their involvement with mental health services that had no right to be in my proximity or to be discussing me or to be breaching confidentiality are all issues that I am still contending with. The relevant agencies have received 3 impact statements as well as ombudsman procedure applications. None of them have been acknowledged. The European Court of Human Rights has also heard from me, and I am still awaiting the United Nations to help address the very serious human rights abuses that are occurring in Tralee, County Kerry, unfortunately. The societal obstacles have been horrendous. Medical care, harms to my body, my light body, my spiritual light body, information withheld, culprits accessing information unethically and unlawfully, and safeguarding themselves with the means of unlawful actions is contradictory to the function and purpose and obligation of justice in a democracy in 2021. My son is legally and technically a missing person. My child was perfectly cared for. He wasn't abandoned, he wasn't abused. He was perfectly provided for since I gave birth to him. My child is lawfully to be placed in my care, but unfortunately the wrongdoers have not been prepared or responsible or professional enough to address the shortcomings and wrongdoings that they caused to my son and I. So the issue of medical matters that I'm treating have been successful since 2019. I've treated my ailments that my general practitioners refused to treat. There have been incessant violations of privacy by these individuals. There have been breaches of confidentiality and there have been defamation incidents that are not substantiated, that are not honest and that are not accurate. the issue of royal patronage, international protection and whistleblower protection being violated due to culprits of hate crime is a very worrying concern for any woman and child in any democracy or any modern country of the European Union. The issue of my matrimony being imposed upon is another serious matter, especially when the culprits are also trespassing on my marital property. The issue of displacement and deprivation and defamation and disrespect to my royal patronage and my child with the past 3 years are still issues that I am awaiting the relevant agencies and individuals to address considerately, respectfully and professionally. As an educator, as a law-abiding citizen with a clean track record that has not ever been in any way contempt with any individuals, nor have I ever been involved in ASBO behaviour in public life or in any form at all. I've experienced awful occurrences that I am surprised have not been addressed. My body has been damaged due to these individuals, and they have not addressed their damages and disrespect to my human anatomy. So every right in the Declaration of Human Rights and the Constitution of this democracy have not been respected in this unworthy cause, vendetta of very guilty culprits that have violated a humanitarian and a recovery advocate of the Fellowship. As a recovery advocate of the Fellowship since 2006, this situation of my anonymity has been another huge concern. The breach of anonymity in a fellowship and the breach of confidentiality with regard to my royal ancestry of guilty culprits that have been treasonous is also another issue that I would appreciate the relevant agencies addressing. As regards my role in societal and spiritual and legislative developments with the past 2 years, 3 years, my entitlements have not been acknowledged or respected. There have been phenomenal developments in the past 2 years. There have been people also, culprits of offences against my royal patronage, that have taken credit for work they have not been doing, that have been responsible for intellectual, spiritual, financial and creative theft by unlawful and unethical means that were not consented to. The inquiry that I'm entitled to and the justice that I'm entitled to that is being obstructed by a collective that owe a gargantuous debt since 2006, since they defamed my name, is an issue for all women. So this upload is with regard to my rights that are not negotiable by culprits that have been offensive against the state. The issue of proximity and privacy and guilty culprits reoffending is another matter that I have an obligation to raise with the United Nations. Culprits in a small town community during term of COVID occurring does not safeguard them from the damages to sacred that they damaged. It doesn't safeguard them in a small knit community from the defamation and the falsehoods and the false allegations and the slander that they are perpetuating. The issue of a child unlawfully withheld from his mother in a democracy is a frightening occurrence for any young child. And as a teacher with an absolutely spotless track record, and as a humanitarian that has worked at home and abroad and that has been pivotal in positive developments in my society, and as a recovery advocate that has respected other people's journey in recovery since 2006, to be experiencing injustice, discrimination and inequality at the behest of egotistical, narcissistic culprits, arrogant to abuse and repeat their offences against the Constitution and the Declaration, is abhorrent in 2021. So I would appreciate the United Nations having a look at all my uploads for the past 3 years. The harms against the declaration have been outrageously shocking. As a teacher with a clean track record that has taught young and old, I would expect more from a child at the age of reason at this stage of this vendetta than any of the adults that are using cheap ploys and tactics to evade and avoid the damages that they've cost my child and I, that are trespassing on my property and imposing upon my matrimony. They have been cheeky enough to discuss unlawfully transactions with regard to my marriage. The individuals that are causing these offences are disrespecting sacred royal patronage. As a humanitarian that has experienced antagonism for the past 2 years since 2019, the individuals that are of unlawful actions and unethical practices are responsible for very, very serious harms far and wide, societally and environmentally, and in private life also. The individuals that have been culminating and perpetrating the worst imaginable disrespect since 2006 have not been for the betterment of society. So this upload on the 14th of April is an update for the United Nations with regard to the disrespect to my royal patronage, my matrimony, my marital and ancestral property, my beautiful son that is lawfully to be placed in my care, where he wasn't ever abused or abandoned or ever deprived of the care that he requires, that any child requires. The issue of proximity and privacy and repeat offenders is also a concern. Their deaths for defamation and damages and disrespect are gargantuous. So I would appreciate the United Nations addressing as soon as possible the offences, the slander, the falsehoods and the wrongdoings occurring against a humanitarian, a recovery advocate, an educator, etc., at your earliest convenience.